A device driver is a software that tells the operating system or other application programs how to communicate with a piece of hardware. For example, printer's device driver allows the operating system and application programs to print without knowing the details of the printer. Device drivers act as mediators between the application program and the device the program needs to use. Device drivers can be architecture specific or generic. Architecture specific device driver manages hardware that is integrated into the master processor. For example, device drivers for on chip memory. A generic device driver manages hardware that is not integrated into the master processor. It can be configured to run on a variety of architectures or processors. Examples for generic device drivers include those built for I2C bus, PCI bus, display devices, mouse, keyboard, L2 cache, flash drive, etc. All device drivers are generally required to perform the following functions. The first function is hardware startup, where a hardware device is initialized upon power on. The next function is hardware shutdown, where a hardware is configured into its power off state. The next function is hardware disable, which allows software to disable a hardware. The next function is hardware enable, which allows software to enable a hardware device. The next function is hardware acquire, in which a software is allowed to lock access to a hardware. The next function is hardware release, in which a software is allowed to free or unlock the hardware it had locked. The next set of functions are as follows. Hardware read. It allows software to read data from a hardware device. Hardware write. It allows software to write data to a hardware device. The next function is hardware install. It allows software to install a new hardware device. The next function is hardware uninstall. It allows software to remove hardware that has previously been installed. Next, we move on to certain specific categories of device drivers. The first one is interrupt handling device drivers. Its functions include the following. Interrupt handling startup. It is the initialization of interrupt hardware upon power on. Interrupt handling shutdown. It refers to configuring the interrupt hardware into power off state. Interrupt handling disable. It allows software to disable active interrupts. Interrupt handling enable. It allows software to enable inactive interrupts. There is a function which is unique to interrupt handling device drivers, that is interrupt handler servicing. It refers to handling the interrupt code, that is, it refers to execution of the ISR. The next category is onboard bus device drivers. These device drivers handle functions related to bus. The functions are as follows. Bus startup. It refers to initialization of the bus upon power on. Bus shutdown. It is configuring the bus into the power off state. Bus disable. This function allows software to disable a bus. Bus enable. This function allows a software to enable a bus. Bus acquire. It allows a software to lock access to a bus. Bus release. It allows software to unlock a bus it had previously locked. Bus read. It allows software to read data from the bus. Bus write. It enables software to write data to a bus. Bus install. It allows software to install a new bus. Bus uninstall. It allows software to remove an installed bus. The next category of device drivers is the memory device drivers. The functions of memory device drivers are as follows. Memory subsystem startup. It refers to the initialization of memory devices upon startup. Memory subsystem shutdown. It refers to the configuration of memory related hardware into power off state. Memory subsystem disable. This is the function which allows software to disable memory related hardware. Memory subsystem enable. It allows software to enable memory related hardware. Memory subsystem write. It refers to storing data into memory. Memory subsystem read. It refers to reading data or retrieving data from memory. The table shows a summary of the functions of various categories of device drivers.